Yeah.
Good afternoon. Information Technology and Government Affairs Committee will now come to order. We do have a quorum. Councilmember Zine is president, myself, 2 out of 3 members present. We'll begin by announcing the continuation of items 11 and 15. The committee will be scheduled in 2 weeks, and those items will be heard at that time. Also, unless there's any objection from members of the committee, we'll receive and file items 13 and 14. And also, are there any public comment cards on items 3, 4, 5, and 6? These are obsolete record items? I'm sorry.
No.
Okay.
Receive and file both.
So,
Okay. 13.
These are items relative to obsolete records, unless there's any objections from the committee. 3, 4, 5, and 6, those items will be deemed.
Wait. You said 13 and 14 receive and file.
Yeah.
Now you're on what?
Items 3, 4, 5, and 6.
And what do you want to do with those?
Those are reports to the committee, and unless the committee has any questions, we'll approve those items.
To destroy. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. And we'll go back to item number 15. Mr. Williams, are you going to be able to be here in 2 weeks, or would you like me to? Okay, I figured that. Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll hear that item in 2 weeks. Thank you for filling out that comment card. We look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks on that item. And so we have Councilmember Labange present, and so therefore we'll take item 8 out of order, and we'll hear item number 8.
And item number 8 is a motion, Labange relative to instructing the Bureau of Street Services with the assistance of ITA to report on the feasibility of creating a city web-based interactive complaint system similar to the C-Click-Fix website in order to better facilitate the public's ability to report potholes located on city streets and to request pothole repair.
Mr. Chair, thank you. The department can speak for itself. I think it's just an opportunity to use technology to help us identify challenges in our streets. I don't have anyone here. If we could send it for them to study it.
Services? Anybody here from the department?
Good afternoon, Council Member Cardenas and Council Member Zine. Nazario Salcedo, Assistant Director, Bureau of Street Services. Relative to this item, the Bureau of Street Services is open-minded to analyze or assess any possibility to increase or enhance or otherwise streamline our response to our residents. Realistically, we're not the experts in terms of ITA infrastructure. I know we depend tremendously on 311, one call to City Hall. It is a very successful mechanism that we use to respond within the next business day to pothole requests. Again, we had a meeting with our sister department of ITA, and they are indeed the experts in terms of, what is required in order to bring such websites such as, Facebook or all the other ones like Councilmember Labange recommended. We are not, again, the expert, but we are open-minded to explore every possibility available.
And then, Mr. Chair, if you could just explore it, then report back to you if it's feasible within these tough economic times.
Okay. And is anybody here from ITA who can speak to this item? Okay. Obviously, as the maker of the motion just mentioned, this is an opportunity for us to understand the feasibility of this opportunity and whether or not we could actually implement it in the city. Obviously, it would take ITA not only exploring it, but giving us advice as to whether or not that's something that could be done in-house, other off-the-shelf programs, et cetera, what kind of resources would have to be dedicated in order to keep it functioning and interactive with the public. So that being said, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yes, sir. This is Kevin Crawford, ITA. This is something that we have been looking at for a while now. This is another product. There's several of them out there that can do different portions of it. We have 6 different applications that are already running in 311 that accept information via the web. We're looking at a centralized CRM system so that the information can be collected en masse and then sent out to the different departments in the city. And we've actually requested this in the BTOP 2 grant, the funding of this, of a CRM system.
Okay, excellent. So, to both departments, is there any reason why you couldn't report back in 30 days, or would you need a little bit longer? I mean, just be honest with us. I mean, we know there's a lot of moving parts right now. We're talking about the revisions of your current budgets, et cetera, and, losing personnel to ERIP and all these kinds of things. So, if you need 45 days or 60 days, let us know, and we'll expect it in that time. 60 days? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Mr. Carter, thank you. Mr. Zine, thank you.
Any more questions?
I had questions.
Yes. Of Mr. Labange or of the?
Well, of the folks, I've never heard of See-Click Fix. Can you describe what that system is?
The system allows, with an iPhone, to actually take a picture of the issue, whether it be a piece of graffiti, a pothole in the street, whatever else. It also gets a GPS fix with the iPhone, and then when it is forwarded to us, we get both a picture of the item that needs to be corrected and the location.
So could we include, because I know you can file this issue over the internet, lacity.org, you can report potholes, et cetera. Why couldn't we include this for streetlights that are out, traffic signs that are down, or other things other than potholes?
That's what they're going to study. They're going to study.
Absolutely, you can.
So once it's developed, if it works, then people reporting any kind of situation could send it in and automatically is received by the department that's funneled to that specific department, and then they would then follow up accordingly. How many places are using this other than Washington?
Right now, the only place that I'm aware of is San Francisco.
How's it working up there?
They have just started their project, but it looks very, very interesting. They're getting a lot of interest from the public because of the ease of submittal, because they don't have to go online, sit down at their computer or anything else. They just click a button on their phone and it's done.
And then is the charge to the person reporting or to the agency that's receiving?
Currently, the system is in what we call beta, so there is no charge.
To either
And there
party?
isn't a charge mechanism that I'm aware of yet.
So it's a free service like 911? Okay. So my compliments to Mr. Labange for his creativity and thoughtfulness.
Mr. Zine, you're very kind.
You want to say that again, Mr. Zine? Or is that one enough?
Well, one's enough.
Okay.
He just wants to tell me.
I don't want to overburden him.
So ITA is the C-Clip Fix, is that like a patent thing, or is that something we came up with, or?
No, that's an external software,
Okay,
commercial.
so that's the actual name of it.
Right.
So I was thinking about animal services, we could have a program called C-Clip Fixed. I was wondering. Spay and neutering is a big deal in the city. We want to,
So let's support that one. Move on.
you want to do, I'll do a motion in a second? All right, okay, we don't have any public comment cards on item number 8. Okay, so public comment, anybody here for item number 8? Seeing and hearing none, public comment, item number 8 is now closed. And so we will get a report back in 60 days. So we'll hear this item in this committee when it's reported to.
Thank you, Mr. Carter, Mr. Zine.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Labange.
Mr. Labange.
Okay, we now move back to, we'll hear item number 9.
And item number 9 is a motion, Han Labange, relative to negotiating amendments to agreements with ASIPSA and the LA City Employees Association, doing business as City Employees Club of Los Angeles, to expand the sales of approved merchandise with the City of LA logo to non-members and the general public.
Good afternoon. Holly Walcott with the Office of the City Clerk. Basically, right now, we have non-exclusive agreements with 2 different agencies, the LA City Employees Club and ASIPSA, and they are allowed to use the city seal to sell to approved items to their members only. The council had expressed some interest through motion of Ms. Hans that they be allowed to sell to the public as well as only members, and we need council authority in which to amend the contract and allow them to sell to the public as well as members.
Okay.
Phil Lang.
city attorney's office, for the record.
Yes, are there any concerns that the city attorney's office has thought of that would make us concerned at all in any way about misuse of the logos? Obviously, somebody, if they wanted to, they could do it anyway, but I mean, is there any concern that we would be exacerbating that opportunity out there, or it's not much of a difference?
No, actually, this licensing scheme would be better because we would establish a licensing pattern, and therefore people cannot say that we don't enforce our trademark. And also, like we said, other people can use it out there without our permission, and this would ring it in contractually, and also with the royalty generated for the city. And also the QC provision in there that all the merchandises before mass production have to be inspected or approved by the city clerk's office before mass production, and therefore the quality of the seal would look just the way that we want it to be in terms of color, the roundness of the circle, and so forth.
Now, when it comes to the revenue from these sales, where does the revenue go to?
The revenue is currently placed in the Intellectual Property Trust Fund. So far, to date, we've received, this is since 2007, we've received a total of $5,023 from the LA City Employees Club, and to date, ASIPS has claimed that they have not sold any objects with the city seal to date.
Okay, so the bottom line is this is not something that is being permeated due to revenue purposes. This is something that is just an opportunity for us to make sure that we have the right and proper kind of controls, and that we don't, that we actually have a venue in which if somebody wants to appreciate our city seal or what have you, it can be done, and this is the proper way to do it.
Yes, and it should increase a certain amount of revenue. It's not going to.
Yeah, it's not going to put us out of our budget woes.
Right.
Yeah, I have a question regarding the logo. There's a number of folks driving around in cars, and they have the city logo attached. There needs to be a provision that the city logo cannot be sold where it's a decal, because there's a lot of cars driving around with the city decal, and there needs to be the provision if they want to sell the hats and the shirts and the watches, but the decal itself or any facsimile should be restricted. And I think the municipal code restricts that to official city vehicles and official city use.
Yes, your Councilman, there's a code. It actually makes it misdemeanor, I believe.
But they've
and
been
you're talking about the decal.
And they've been selling the decal.
They may not do it. It's specifically called out in the provision in the contract. They may not manufacture any merchandises that impart the color of law or decal.
They were selling that in LA. There's a magazine that they put, a newspaper.
That was what precipitated the first contract several years ago, and I think was referral from a very wise council member to our office, and that's how we knew about it, and we enforced against it, and then as a result of that, we entered into a licensing agreement with the LECAE.
So no decals?
No decals, and there's a specific provision against that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We're on item number 9. Public comment is open on item number 9. Is there anybody here for public comment on item number 9? Seeing and hearing none, public comment on item number 9 is now closed. With that,
Look who's joining us.
we've been joined by
This is the Honorable
Councilmember Perry, and we have a full complement of the committee. Thank you, Ms. Perry. And we are on item number 9, and it's the action of the committee to adopt the motion. Thank you. We now move to item number 7.
Thank you.
Bouncing all over the place.
Item number 7 is a motion, Cardenas-Labange Huizar, relative to the status of lease agreements for the installation of telecommunications equipment on City of LA property, including potential revenue from such agreements and related matters.
Okay. Do we have somebody from the city attorney's office here, somebody from GSD?
John Shepard, GSD, Asset Management Division.
Good afternoon, council members. David Michelson with Office of the City Attorney. Good afternoon, Dan Kreinberg with the Office of City Attorney.
What's your name again?
Dan Kreinberg.
Okay. So this is potentially an opportunity for us to utilize our facilities and open up the opportunity for private industry to compensate the city for the use of installing a telecommunications equipment on our properties. My first question is, so that everybody understands what we're talking about, specific to this particular motion, what kind of equipment are we talking about? Are we talking about putting up, facilities when it comes to actual buildings? Are we talking about antennas? What is this motion referring to?
Most likely it would be antennas and related equipment, perhaps comm boxes that are associated with the antennas.
So from the city attorney's office, is there anything that you could explain to us as far as what you're understanding, what equipment this is referring to?
Council members, David Michelson with City Attorney's Office. I think the representative from GSD is probably accurate when he says that typically what we would anticipate to be put on the property would be cellular antenna sites and related equipment, the boxes associated with them. They could go on to the side of city buildings. They could go on cell towers installed on city-owned land. There's an existing city ordinance that contemplates that GSD will be empowered and have the delegated authority to enter into those contracts for up to 20 years with companies that want access to city property.
Okay. Now, one thing that I wanted to make it very clear that we're not precluding, for example, the way this motion is written and your understanding is that on these kinds of facilities, if somebody wanted to, if ABC company, well, they're actually a company, if XYZ company wanted to put a cell unit on a city property, and they really wanted to do it on that property, they approached GSD. Is this motion talking about if they were to be granted and we were to enter in an agreement, would they have exclusivity on that site, or this is something where it does not preclude us from continuing to do business with other organizations on that site?
As I know it, it would not be exclusive, so other companies could.
Now, if it were exclusive, then we probably, to the city attorney, we would probably be looking at having to contemplate whether or not we would have to go out to RFP on that site. But since it's not exclusive and it's not precluding us from someone saying, hey, wait a minute, I would like to have a cell facility on that site. You can't do business with them. They wouldn't have that legal argument because we could say, well, if you want to also occupy that site, you're welcome to negotiate with us, correct?
Council member, that's correct. We've taken a preliminary look at that issue and believe that because it is sort of a non-exclusive arrangement, that a competitive solicitation, opening it up through an RFP, is not legally mandated. It's something that council may want to do, or the city may want to do, just from a business standpoint, to throw a larger net out there. But frankly, any company could come forward to the city and seek to enter into a contractual arrangement with the city through GSD to get on city property to put this equipment. There is an element, though, in the equipment that would give some protection to the company who has the contract, meaning company XYZ comes in, they have a contract with the city, they install their, let's say, cell tower. The city could not, a month later, do a contract with their competitor or with anyone else for that matter for that exact same spot if it somehow technically interferes with the transmission of company X, Y, and Z. But one of the things that we will try to accomplish working with GSD in any contract entered into is to make sure that co-location takes place, so that if company XYZ puts up their cell tower first under contract with the city, other companies could come in, co-locate on that tower, and the city will get revenue from that as well.
Now, the co-location, is that something that's new to government and industry, or is that something that seems to have played out to the point where we can feel comfortable that when we arrive on the language and the understandings, that we're not putting ourselves in a situation where later on we say, oh my gosh, we're now got a convoluted lawsuit on this site or many sites?
Well, unfortunately, no one can sort of underestimate the
But-
ability
but
of
I'm
folks
just
to bring
talking-
lawsuits. But no, yeah, it is common enough, co-location, you're right, council member. There's no reason to believe co-location could not be an appropriate and profitable feature in these contracts. We would want the city to have as much control over the co-location as possible, including the revenues, but yeah, that should be hammered out, we agree.
Yeah, subleasing is not something we want to encourage people to engage in. If they really are interested in that site, they really should be interested in negotiating with the city, not capturing a site and then subleasing to other folks, which means that really the city is not, in my opinion, adhering to its fiduciary responsibility to its constituents, because the owners of our sites are not the council or the mayor or the city attorney.
Right.
They are actually owned by the public. So for us to respect that and appropriately allow this kind of opportunity, we should be mindful of the fact that we're not doing this to encourage people to have subleasing of those locations.
Yeah, the master agreement that the city might enter into with any one of these companies should and will have, that'll be the goal, of course, have co-location language in it to make sure the co-location can be captured in that contract and allowed to have happen, because it's probably in everyone's best interest to co-locate this equipment.
Okay. Now, when it comes to the provisions in such, in the authority that you cited earlier, what authority does GSD seem to have today when it comes to this kind of activity?
Well, in the ordinance adopted by City Council, GSD has the full delegated authority that it needs to enter into these contracts for placement of this type of equipment on city property that comes within the auspices of GSD's authority, of course, would not include proprietary property, for instance, and to enter into contracts for up to 20 years at fair market value. So it still has to be an arm's length negotiation with any one of these companies to make sure the city's getting fair market value, the city's getting a lucrative and appropriate contract that protects the city's interest and does so in an appropriate way. So GSD has the authority now. These contracts do not need to come back to the city council as long as the contracts fall within the four squares, so to speak, of the ordinance. Up to 20 years, fair market value, those kinds of things.
Yeah, market value, which means that we would have to have garnered and received some kind of evaluation on what the value of that site is to X type of company, X type of business. And this is also something that is not only precluded to, for example, sell companies only. For example, if somebody had for some reason, radio stations enhance their signal by having some small repeaters dotted around the city, or excuse me, around a geographic area. This doesn't only speak towards cell sites. It could speak toward other communication type facilities, obviously if they fall within the similar guidelines of this. As I tried to point out earlier, we're not talking about someone saying, okay, we'd love to put a cell facility on a parking lot, and all of a sudden we're looking at 100 by 100 square foot, 100 foot by 100 foot building. We're still looking at confined spaces, right?
Right.
Such as similar to like the space that would be taken up by some kind of pole structure or something like that, correct?
Absolutely. The ordinance actually spells out, for purposes of placing towers, antenna, repeaters, and other similar telecommunications equipment, together with requisite ancillary utilities, structures, and equipment. So I think that's correct, Councilmember. And of course, the city in doing this is acting in its proprietary capacity, its capacity as a landlord, the capacity as an owner of property, almost as if someone in the private sector would do this. You're not using your police powers, your regulatory powers.
Thank you. And one last point, colleagues, and this does not preclude, this ordinance does not preclude any other responsibilities that the city would have, such as planning responsibilities or what have you.
No, that's absolutely right, Councilmember. Any other, for instance, zoning issues or conditional use permits that were required, those things would still be overlaid and they'd have to still acquire those permissions, absolutely.
And how much money can we anticipate generating from this process?
Well,
How many,
Good question.
how many
at this point,
millions and millions of dollars?
well, we hope it would be in millions, but at this point, we're not sure. It's going to depend on each site, appraisal for each site, based on the market values.
Now, the telecom industry rents space around the city from private owners. We should evaluate how much those private owners are receiving before we give some discount rates to these, because the consumer is paying for the telecommunications, and oftentimes when we do something, we shortchange the taxpayer. So we should evaluate, for example, a cell company leases land from a shopping center, and they're paying them $3,000 a month, and we give a comparable site for $300 a month. So we need to compare that to make sure we're getting rates that are on accord with what the lease would render. Now, I don't know about a 20-year lease, but somehow not shortchange when we can receive dollars for this, because it's obviously important for them to have those networks, those wireless networks made up. And then the second question is, where's the money going to go? The bottomless pit, or is it going to go to some department?
Councilman,
maintain service?
John Chavez with the CAO's office. With respect to the amount of money, the additional revenues that we can get, our office is fully prepared to come back in 30 days to provide some additional information on that. We were directed to do that in the motion already.
But we need to check with the private sector to see what people are paying for those sites
And that's where the appraisal comes
The
in.
appraisals, yeah, the appraisals will address that.
from the private side.
Yes.
Yeah, comparable.
Okay, and then where's the money going?
That remains to be determined. There could be a split, general fund or the trust fund. That's something that still needs to be determined.
So that's still.
And who determines that?
It would be a recommendation to the council. We could address that in our report.
But it's actually a policy matter that the council.
I would defer to the city attorney's office if that's more of a legal issue where the money should go to. For instance,
Policy issue, not a legal issue.
right.
It's general
No.
fund money, so the city has great discretion in terms of how it would want to spend the money. You may want to park the money as it comes in a trust fund, so you can keep an eye on it, know how much money is coming in, but ultimately it's general funds that could be used in a wide range of issues. And in terms of making sure that we're getting a fair market value, that's a very good point, council member, and we certainly would defer to GSD and CIO. However, the city attorney's office has already aggressively been running with this issue. We have, thanks to Dan to my left here, Mr. Kreinberg, we've actually made contact with other governmental entities up and down the state of California. We're also exploring with the folks in the private sector, trying to figure out what kind of money they're able to bring in, what other features they're putting into their contracts to make sure that our contract will be state-of-the-art and is protective of the city's fisc as much as possible. And certainly we'll want to work with CIO and GSD in that regard.
I'd like to add, Councilman, in terms of if we put one of these cell towers on our rec and park facility or library facility, they have their own trust funds. I think that's something we have to determine whether the money would go into those respective trust funds. That's something for us to investigate further.
And legally, that's a good point. For instance, Rec and Parks does have greater authority and control over its budget, as you all well know, compared to most city general funded departments. So depending on which department's property, in a sense, it's all city property, but depending who the steward is of that property, there could be strings attached in terms of how to spend the money.
And then the other question would be where, I'll give you the company, Cardenas Telecommunication. So
No
when that-
relationship.
when that pole goes up on top of the Mission Police Station, and then that sign, Cardenas Telecommunication, there should be some type of restriction
Yeah,
where you're not going to be using it for advertising for that particular company, because I can see free advertising as part of this arrangement. Here's the pole, we own the pole, we're leasing it, and put the sign up.
Right.
Or
We
many
should build things
billboards.
into the contract to avoid that.
Yeah,
Absolutely right,
yeah,
Councilman.
okay.
Well, when it comes to signage and stuff, the city attorney's office is all over that, right?
Sadly, most of that lands in my lap, so, a lot of it lands in my lap, so yeah.
But this would be a creative way to do it, to have the
It would.
pole, and then to put the sign, the company name up there,
And they
like
can
you see
claim
on
it's
billboards.
on-site signage, so it's good to go. So
There you
we
go.
need to make sure we know what they're doing. Yeah.
On top of the police station.
And that's a good point, because, for example, there should be identifiers, obviously, especially if it's a cell tower with multiple users, right? say there's 3, 4 different companies, obviously they would have the right to make sure that they have identifiers on there to know which component is theirs, company A, B, and C. And yet at the same time, we would have to control that by saying that, being specific by saying the lettering cannot be of X size or larger. These identifiers cannot or could not identify your logo, et cetera. So the bottom, it's kind of like a boat. Somebody names a boat and put the nice, beautiful name on the back, yet at the same time, the official numbering might be, you know, CA25552. We would have the responsibility of making sure that we control that, so that we don't accidentally stare at something and say, we blew it, they found a way around it, the contract wasn't tight enough, and it did, in fact, become an advertising tool for them as much as perhaps a south side would be, right? So that's a good point, and I'm expecting that the city attorney's office is already all over those angles of making sure that the contract is written in a manner in which we've covered those bases, right? Correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Because we know what happens if there's a loophole.
Absolutely.
Correct. Dan gets in trouble.
Maybe that's why he's being so quiet.
He's super.
Yeah, I just want to make a quick comment that as we move forward on this policy discussion, that we are able to devise a policy that encourages this kind of a program throughout the city so that it's spread out in an equitable manner. So that may be difficult to achieve, but
Right.
maybe we should try.
Yeah.
Dan gets in trouble.
So with those instructions that were iterated by the CAO and that you're already generating a report, the city attorney's office, also on the things that you're working on, obviously add any of the items that were added by the questions that we forwarded to you, and also with GSD. So making sure that we cover all those bases. What we'd like to do, this is certainly unlike previous items earlier. We clarified that they really aren't issues of revenue generation in any capacity. This truly is the potential for a revenue generator, be it general fund, be it park and recs or library or what have you. The bottom line is, regardless, should we be successful in passing this motion, putting the proper language in place, feeling comfortable that we are in the proper setting to allow GSD to move forward and to start negotiating with individual companies, this could, in fact, start to generate millions of dollars in short order. When I say short order, within months, potentially. Obviously, if you're looking at hundreds of sites at a time that potentially we could be negotiating, then it definitely in the millions of dollars eventually, over a period of time, and certainly more over a long period of time. So with that, I just want to remind all of you that the CAO, GSD, CLA, and the city attorney, that in the next 30 days, we want to be able to come back. We want you to come back to this committee so that we've been able to solidify that we're comfortable, that we have all the T's crossed, all the I's dotted. We know what kind of contracts that the city attorney's office has basically blueprinted for GSD, so that we can get this to the council floor, we can pass it, and then move forward with the policy actually being implemented. Okay? So 30 days, or better yet, 4 weeks from today. This is a regularly scheduled meeting, so 4 weeks from today, 4 Tuesdays from today, we expect to have those reports back. If anything interferes with your ability to do that, please let us know immediately. Let the chairman of this committee know immediately, so we can figure out if we can stay on track, so that we can get this out of this committee and to the council immediately after that. Okay, any more questions? No. Any more questions? Okay.
Very good.
We're on item number 7. We have, thank you. We have a public comment card from John Q. Lee.
John?
Okay, all right, thank you. I guess he liked what he heard. Okay. That concludes the public comment cards that I have on item number 7. Is anybody else here on item number 7 for public comment? Okay. Seeing no one come forward, this item is closed for public comment, and that is the instruction from this committee that we will hear this item with these reports and the conclusive work in 4 weeks to this committee. Next, we move to item number 1.
Item number 1 is a discussion and possible actions relative to updates from various departments regarding their current technology systems and projects, the number of staff assigned to tech projects, the number of staff with IT responsibilities that are lost to ERIP, the source of funding for all tech projects, and a brief description of consolidation impacts on department operations.
Transportation, Department of Transportation? We will hear 2 reports today. Let me announce that we'll hear a report from Transportation, who's before us at this moment, and then after that, we'll hear a report from Bureau of Contract Administration, and then Bureau of Street Services and the Treasurer's Office. He'll be ready when? Okay. All right. Then we'll officially receive those 2 reports by the next meeting. That is the Treasurer and also the Bureau of Street Services. So, Transportation.
Good afternoon. Selwyn Hollins, Acting AGM, LADOT. I think the impetus behind a lot of this was the impact of staffing levels on the department, so I'll start there. We currently have 13 systems employees. We lost 4 through the elimination of positions during this current fiscal year budget, and we're losing 2 this year from ERIP. So
What do you do with how many?
13.
13.
Yeah, so we lost about a third. Our systems group is really divided into 2 main areas in our department. We have our Bureau of Information Services, which has the majority of the existing staff, and then we have our Business Solutions group, which has the other. The Business Solutions group is a group that was created 2 years ago and reports directly to the executive office, whereas the Information Systems group is its own bureau. Many of the systems projects that we work on are directly related to our operations, whether it's parking enforcement, parking, field operations, transit services, engineering functions, etc. And many of those are actually, the system support is outsourced to private companies. The work that we do in-house, where our staff is dedicated, is reflected on, I believe you have the chart before you, in our ATSAC operations, Business Solutions Group. We have staff dedicated to computer-aided design program, GIS support, and parking enforcement, et cetera, et cetera. As far as in reference to consolidation efforts, mainly our support, our help desk support, GIS system support, server support are areas that we would be very open to considering for consolidation. Some of the other functions are tied into contracts. For example, parking, the processing of parking citations is built into the contract we have with ACS. Our technology with parking meters is built into contracts that are maintained by those contractors. Same thing with our transit services. So many of those functions we do not directly involved. We're not directly involved with the development, other than reviewing, providing user support, and other things. So.
Okay. So the bottom line is, one of the things that every department needs to understand is that it's not about trying to defend a practice. It's just about explaining and getting everybody in the working group to understand what the practices are and what items can be consolidated or not, which items are proprietary, which elements of your day-to-day IT responsibilities and activities can in fact be consolidated. At any given time in this city, on any given year, we're probably somewhere between $250 million to $500 million in IT connected expenditure, hardware, software, personnel, contracting out, all of those things. So just looking at it from the perspective of if we as a city can figure out how to be effective in having at least a 10% overall efficiency improvement over previous years, we could be looking at anywhere between $25 to $50 million in efficiencies. So that is the objective of the council and of this committee is to make sure that we do, in fact, understand that everything that we agree to going forward has been justified, and the things that we agree that can or should and will be consolidated will be done so, and we hope that these decisions are being made in a manner in which we're not going to be compromising the purpose of those activities, and as a result of that, will be a much more efficient operation overall, and we will have consolidated and preserved some of the resources of the public, which are their tax dollars, because obviously we don't have enough tax dollars to render all the services that we're used to giving to our constituents as today versus yesterday. Okay, any questions? Okay, so you're all aware that you're all welcome to be part of the working group, correct?
We are definitely involved.
If you're not there, there's going to be a point in time where they're going to talk about you.
We'll be there this
So
Thursday.
you're going to want to be there. Okay? All right.
Thank you.
But talk about you in a good way, I'm sure. Okay, thank you for your report.
Thank you.
Bureau of Contract Administration?
Absent.
Were they here? Is Bureau of Contract Administration here? Were they here earlier?
Move on.
Okay, so we'll hear them, and so by next week, we're going to close down all of these reports, or excuse me, by the next meeting, we're going to close down all of these reports. Okay, and we have only 3 left now. Okay, with that, we'll hold this item in committee to the next scheduled agenda so we can hear the final report. Okay, thank you. Now we move to item number 2.
And item number 2 is a motion, Cardenas Gregorian, relative to amending an agreement.
I'm sorry. It was covered, Mr. Williams. I want to hear the public comment card. I misspoke. We can't move on from item number 1. Dr. Williams, sorry about that. Well, we didn't take action. I mean, we're continue it to next week, but you're welcome to give comment. Please. You sure? Okay, all right. Sorry about that, but we didn't take action, so it's not like we weren't willing to hear what you have to say. We're not done with the reports. Sorry about that. Okay, thank you, Dr. Williams. Sorry about that. We'll move to item number 2.
And item number 2 is a motion, Cardenas Gregorian, relative to amending an agreement with Iron Mountain Records Management to transfer administrative responsibilities for the contract to the city clerk and to increase the lifetime contract expenditure maximum to accommodate annual extensions.
Hello.
Good afternoon, Holly Walcott with the Office of the City Clerk. I also have Todd Gadowski, our Records Retention Manager, here with me to answer any of your questions. Basically, the Department of General Services is decided that they no longer wanted to have this contract because they are getting out of all of the service, what they consider service-oriented contracts, and going with and keeping only the commodity. So there were various departments that had records there, and they asked that the city clerk continue this contract. And we agreed, although we believe that we needed city council approval in which to take over the administrative responsibility of this contract. Todd can answer any questions relative to the amount and number of records that are at any of the locations, but there are 17 different departments with records at Iron Mountain. And while we are willing to administer this contract for the lifetime of the contract, we would ask that at the termination of the contract, that should there be any records that do not fit in the records center, that one of the larger departments handle the RFP, as we do not believe we will be staffed to do so. And each department is their own records manager by administrative code.
Okay. So basically, each department is their own records manager. So how does that interplay with, but at the end of the day, the city clerk's office is responsible?
We handle the retention and the destruction. So Todd and his group and his remaining 2 other full-time people, they help different departments establish their records retention schedules, and then they remind them about destruction and help them move through the destruction of records process.
Okay. And as it stands today, not when this idea came about, but today, how is the city clerk's office positioned to continue this responsibility?
I'll let Todd answer. Luckily, the people we have left are very good. We do have a couple of part-time student workers as well. We are now closing every Friday.
Right. We have reduced our service hours to customers. This could impact the public as well as city employees. But we do have adequate staff in the record center to continue to meet our basic service needs, to accession incoming records, and to meet our reference requests. There might be some delays for extensive research requests relative to historical or legal research of council files, ordinance history.
Okay. So as of right now, it's still manageable, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Not ideal, but manageable.
Right.
Okay. So we certainly would want to hear from the department if it gets to the point where, say, somebody decides to retire or we lose some resources or what have you. You need to let us know as soon as possible so that we can do the responsible thing, is to try to figure out how we can still manage this. Because this is a responsibility that doesn't go away, right? Just because we would like it to.
That is correct.
Okay, it's a responsibility to continue. Okay. Okay. Any questions? No more questions from the committee. We're on item number 2. Is there anybody here from the public who'd like to speak on item number 2? Public comment is open on item number 2. Seeing and hearing no one come forward, public comment on item number 2 is now closed. With that, it's the action of this committee to adopt the motion. Okay. Thank you. At this point in time, we do have one general comment card. Mr. Williams, would you like to make general public comment right now?
We still have 12.
Yeah. Good. Give him an opportunity. So we're open for general, we still have more items?
We have, yes.
Yeah, we're going to open it up for general public comment and then go back to our items.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Just for the record, on the previous resolution that went through this committee regarding the 710, and right now, La Cañada Flint Ridge has basically voted to oppose 710 no matter where it goes. Glendale is reconsidering their kind of tentative opposition, but now they're going for a full opposition to the 710, above ground through any zone. South Pasadena is also reconsidering their, might say, sound research proposition and going for a complete opposition to 710. In regard to the city of Los Angeles, the mayor's appointees to the MTA voted in, 2 of them voted in favor of moving SR 710 north, the tunnel, into a public-private partnership consideration, even though the mayor recused himself and Councilman Huizar voted against moving it forward. So just keep you informed as to what's happened with the resolution that you thankfully have passed through this committee. Thank you.
Dr. Williams, I can't dialogue with you, but since you have a little bit more time, what was the overall outcome of that vote? You mentioned where the city...
the city of Glendale voted 4 against 1 to oppose the 710, basically no matter where it goes. They think that the money's much better spent developing an east-west leg from the Gold Line into San Fernando Valley proper.
So, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, that is the one general public comment card that we had filled out. I'll reopen general public comment at once we're done with the rest of the items, in case somebody fills out a card before this committee's over. Now we move to item number 10.
And item number 10 is a report from the Department of General Services relative to authorization for a new lease for the Community Development Department at 3683 Crenshaw Boulevard in Los Angeles.
John Shepard, General Services Department, Asset Management Division.
Joe Ruzan, the Community Development Department.
And Annie Chavez with the Community Development Department.
Okay. So it looks like the rental rate is $1.35 a square foot. But when you include the janitorial, okay, in addition, $150 a month for utilities and janitorial expenses. Is there anything you'd like to report to this committee that we should be aware of? It looks like a standard lease by my notes.
We're happy with the lease that the CDD assisted on.
Okay.
Or the terms, we haven't, of course, we haven't got the lease yet, but we're ready.
Is this one of a handful of potential CDD locales, or is this the last one that's in the works?
It actually represents the last one that is in the works. We've actually stationed staff at 6 to 7 locations throughout the city. This is the actual one that we would incur costs for, however.
As far as lease goes?
Yes.
All right. Any questions? Okay. Seeing no more questions from the committee, we're on item number 10. I do not see any public comment cards before me for item number 10. Is anybody here for item number 10 for public comment? Seeing and hearing no one come forward, item number 10, public comment, is now closed. With that, the committee approves the GSD report.
Thank
now
you.
we move to item number 11. Thank you. We move to item number 11.
11 was continued earlier.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Item number 12 is remaining.
Okay.
And item number 12 is a report from the Chief Legislative Analyst relative to the city's position on SB 949, Oropesa, that would expressly prohibit a local authority from enacting or enforcing an ordinance that assesses a penalty for moving violations that are covered by the California Vehicle Code pursuant to Resolution Zine-Garcetti.
Afternoon, Maria Souza Roundtree with the CLA's office. Earlier last month, Councilmember Zine put in a motion to examine the feasibility of reclassifying some of the minor traffic violations, such as photo red light violations, as municipal infractions, and that way we could run it through an administrative citation process and also keep the majority of the fines. Unfortunately, Senator Oropesa put in a bill just before that to outlaw this. And so the resolution before you is opposing that bill. She felt that if cities were move forward doing this, that it would be confusing for people, and that the state would not be getting their funding. So I did check the status of the bill. It's in the Transportation and Housing Committee. It will be heard to have a first hearing on March 23rd.
Okay. Mr. Zion?
Well, examining this, there are some small municipalities that are already proceeding this direction.
Right.
In examining the costs to the taxpayers of Los Angeles or other jurisdiction, we hire the law enforcement authorities, we pay for them, we pay for the equipment, and when they go to court, we pay for their overtime. Out of a $500+ citation for photo red light, the city receives approximately $158. The rest of it goes to the state and a small portion of the county. Today it was stated that the county courts, Judge McCoy said the county courts are going to pink slip over 800 court employees. They're already closed on Wednesday, so the courts can't handle the volume they're already handling. So I think what this process will do is afford the local jurisdiction that has all the costs, they bear the entire cost of the enforcement, to utilize the resources to collect the fines and to adjudicate the cases, similar to what we do with parking citations through administrative process. And I know that Senator Oropesa, who used to be a council member
in
Long Beach, she's lost her vision of local jurisdiction and local control. Her comment was that we are going to be robbing the state. In essence, we are paying the costs, and the state is robbing the municipalities. So I would hope that the city of Los Angeles and other jurisdictions support this and defeat her measure that will undermine the local municipality the opportunity to enforce and collect the fine. At the same time, the governor's proposing to add additional revenue to the state budget by equipping photo red light with radar to collect speeding violation tickets. So we need to lead up to the local jurisdictions, and we would hope that the mayor's office that has a representative in Sacramento will testify before the committee to oppose Senator Opesa's measure. I know I was asked to go up to Sacramento, but I'm not going to take that trip due to the cost involved and the time away from city council. So I would hope that we could pass this. It'll pass the council, and other jurisdictions will then join in defeating Senator Opesa's direction to basically undermine local jurisdiction authority. So I would request that we support our measure to keep local control, local jurisdiction, and permit us to maintain that and hopefully defeat Senate Bill 949, Senator Lopez's bill.
It would be helpful if we could get a position. I don't know whether the clerk can schedule it by Friday of this week, so we'd have an official position by
Yes.
the
And also,
hearing
we
date.
need the mayor's representative who was ever up there to testify regarding this. And I know other jurisdictions are interested in the outcome of this particular measure. But again, there are cities that have already adopted this, and they're moving successfully with it.
Is this item going to any more committees as far as we're aware of?
It is not.
It is not, okay.
It would be scheduled next for council. For this Friday, a special council agenda would need to be requested to consider it.
I request that we do that, Mr.
And
Chair.
it's going to, what committee? In this-
Transportation and Housing,
What date is that committee?
23rd,
23rd, which is next
Tuesday, Wednesday?
Tuesday?
The 23rd is...
Next Tuesday, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I just happen to be aware of the fact that with the depleting number of bodies in the city clerk's office, every time we ask for specials or placeholders on council, et cetera, it's getting harder and harder for them to keep track. So we're going to, this committee is going to request that we put a special agenda on Friday, but we also have to respect the feedback from the clerk's office. Obviously, they want to adhere to any of the requests we make, but we have to start being a lot more careful about, doing so. I happen to be a former legislator. I know that sometimes when we're lucky, they pay attention to whether or not we support or oppose a bill, but most of the time, they really could care less. So to put our staff through that unnecessarily, I'm a little worried about that.
This bill, the Senator Lopez's bill, is directly opposing a motion that we're bringing forward.
But it's in Senate, right? It's still in the Senate House, the House of Origin.
It didn't go to the Assembly. She started in the Senate.
Right,
exactly.
the bill, but we also have your motion dealing with having staff look at what the feasibility is and how we would go forward. We're still going to do that, but, so there's two separate tracks.
Yeah, one is so that we can be listed as opposed when it goes to the next committee hearing. But if it's a Senate bill, it starts off in her house, and then if it gets through her house and off of her floor, then it pops over to the Assembly. So if it's still in the Senate...
Right, this would be the very first hearing, so if it's not possible to get a position on Friday, then we still have time. I just know that it was a priority that we move on as soon as possible.
And also, any one of us can put in a letter of opposition as an individual council member at any moment in time. What this would do is give the official City of Los Angeles position, which means the mayor's people, when they show up, they would say the official position.
That's the direction that we wish to proceed.
All right. Okay, so let me go through public comment, and then we'll announce. We're on item number 12. Is there anybody here for public comment on item number 12? I do not have any public comment cards for item number 12. Seeing and hearing no one come forward for public comment on item number 12. Public comment on item number 12 is now closed. And with that, this committee approves the CLA report to oppose SB 949, and also to ask the city attorney's, city clerk's office if it can be put on the agenda for Friday, respecting the resources that have now been depleted from their office. If it can be done by Friday, it will be done. Otherwise, we'll hear it on the floor next week. Okay, Mr. Zine?
Well, I would have, since it's coming to the Senate on Tuesday, time is of the essence, so I don't know why the clerk's office couldn't make it by Friday, since today's Tuesday.
I don't know if they can or can't. It's just that I've met with the city clerk, and they let me know that every day that goes by with ERIP and the number of bodies that they've had to give up, et cetera, and as we saw in an earlier motion, they're taking on more responsibilities as well. They're just being respectfully honest with us and saying it's getting harder and harder and harder for them to rush items to the floor, because it's not, to them, it's not just a matter of getting it to the floor. They have to have it legal in the proper order with the proper announcements, et cetera, in order for it to be done right. You know what I'm saying? So they're just...
But I still think...
Absolutely, but that's the direction right now.
Right.
And hopefully, with... I think they actually have EAA members there, right? So they actually furlough. Some of their staff
That's
is actually
correct.
furloughing.
You're from the clerk's office, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Why don't you do it?
I will be doing it.
There you go.
Thank you.
See, there you go.
Got the volunteer now.
All right, okay.
I believe a Friday special is feasible this
Okay,
week.
excellent.
You're very
All right,
smart.
You heard it directly from the person who's going to have to burn the midnight oil to make sure it gets done. Okay, excellent. So we'll hear it on Friday.
That's good. I don't
Special on
think
Friday, and with that, that concludes the items scheduled for this agenda. Again, general public comment was opened earlier. It will continue to be open for anybody else who would like to make a general public comment to this committee. I do not see anyone come forward. No more public comment cards for general public comment. General public comment is now closed. Therefore, this committee is now adjourned. Thank you.